Mia was the envy of everyone in City A. Her nominal older brother was a powerful tycoon, and her childhood sweetheart, whom she grew up with, was a rising star in the fashion industry. These two prodigies doted on her, until she confessed her love to her nominal older brother. The tycoon was furious, accusing her of being shameless and publicly declaring his love for another girl to make Mia give up. That girl saw Mia as a thorn in her side and constantly tried to undermine her, but both the tycoon and Mia's childhood sweetheart believed that Mia was deliberately targeting the girl. Heartbroken, Mia went to study abroad in Country Y, where she met the gentle and affectionate Nolan. After Mia left, both the tycoon and her childhood sweetheart regretted their actions and chased after her to Country Y to beg for her forgiveness. 1. Professor Miles, I've decided to accept the opportunity to study in Country Y, Mia said. The person on the other end of the line clearly hadn't expected such a satisfying answer. After all, he had persuaded Mia no less than 10 times, and she had always refused, citing the people she couldn't leave behind in her home country. Surprise mixed with delight, causing Professor Miles's voice to rise uncontrollably. Mia, why did you suddenly change your mind? Have you talked to your family about it? There was no need to consult her family because no one cared whether she left. Neither her nominal older brother nor her childhood sweetheart, with whom she had grown up, cared about anyone but Nora now. On the surface, Mia simply hummed in response. Mia's answer gave her mentor a peace of mind. He became even more excited, rambling on. That's great. This is a really rare opportunity. I felt so sorry that you were unwilling to go before. Mia, don't worry. The teaching there will be done by internationally renowned masters, and you're sure to gain a lot. Your visa should be ready in a month at most. During this time, you can spend some time with your family and friends. After hanging up the phone, Mia stood there in a daze for a long time. In the past, she had been the envy of many. Although her family had fallen on hard times, both her nominal older brother and her childhood sweetheart were wealthy and powerful young masters who could run rampant in City A with a single word. Such people had doted on her. Because she was frail and picky about her food, they would go to great lengths to find various precious herbs for her to nourish her body and ask chefs from Michelin restaurants to cook for her. Any jewelry she glanced at would be bought at a high price at auction, just for her smile. Afraid that she would be bullied, they would always pick her up and drop her off at school, rain or shine, like 2 knights guarding a princess. They remembered her menstrual cycle better than she did, knew her hobbies, and understood the emotions behind her every move. However, the moment Nora appeared, Mia lost both of them simultaneously. Faced with a choice, they would always choose Nora. Just like now, even though it was Mia's birthday today, they still chose to accompany Nora. In the past, they would carefully prepare gifts for her, and on especially important days, but after Nora appeared, it seemed that everything was no longer important. Mia walked slowly to the window and looked at the intimate scene unfolding outside, a pang of bitterness rising in her heart. On the wide lawn, a girl in a white dress was laughing coquettishly, holding a water gun and spraying the 2 handsome men. One was the powerful tycoon who ruled the business world, Mia's nominal older brother. The other was the wealthy young master who was a rising star in the fashion industry, Mia's childhood sweetheart. The tenderness they had exclusively for Mia was now given entirely to Nora, and they were drenched by the water gun but indulgently accompanied the girl in playing this childish game. Nora, slow down, don't fall, the tycoon's usually cold voice softened. Okay, Nora, I'm going to get you. The childhood sweetheart's tone was full of indulgence. The laughter from downstairs was like sharp blades, stabbing straight into Mia's heart. Nora seemed to sense Mia's gaze, and the malice hidden behind her innocent facade was exposed, revealing a smug and provocative smile towards Mia. She inadvertently shook her right hand, revealing a limited edition diamond bracelet. That was the birthday present Luke had promised Mia a few months ago, but now it was on Nora's wrist. Mia pursed her lips and simply drew the curtains, out of sight, out of mind. But she didn't expect Nora to come up to her a few minutes later. 2. The girl was still wearing Luke's coat, and she smiled innocently. Why don't you come down and play with us, Mia? Luke and Kyla were teasing me just now. It was so bad. I'm so clumsy, I almost slipped just now. Luckily Luke caught me. He was afraid I would catch a cold, so he insisted on putting his coat on me, making me look like a child. Nora stuck out her tongue. Before I was with Luke, I thought he was just cold, but I didn't expect him to care about every word I said. I casually complimented the necklace at the auction, and he bought it for me without blinking an eye, costing millions. Kyler is also different from what I thought. He's such a domineering boy, but he always gives in to me. Because I thought his motorcycle was too dangerous and I didn't dare to ride it, he bought a limited edition sports car for me and let me take the wheel. The girl curved her almond-shaped eyes, her words filled with a sense of showing off. Mia didn't know what to say. After clearly understanding Nora's intentions, she was even too lazy to argue with her, just slightly curled her lips. Yeah, that's great. Obviously, this answer didn't satisfy Nora. A trace of malice flashed in the girl's eyes, and she stubbornly repeated, Mia, are you listening to me? As if she had thought of something, Nora changed her face, blinked her innocent deer eyes, and said sweetly, By the way, Mia, it's your birthday today, and Luke and Kyler can't be with you. Did they tell you? The girl showed a sweet and helpless expression. I also tried to persuade Luke and Kyler to stay and celebrate your birthday with you, but they insisted that they had accompanied you every year before your birthday, and it wasn't a big deal. They want to hold a party this year to introduce me to everyone. I'm sorry, Mia. She thought she was used to it, but since Nora appeared, such things happened frequently. But hearing this, Mia couldn't help but feel a storm in her heart. Suppressing her emotions, Mia didn't want to talk to her more, and tried to bypass Nora. But the seemingly innocent girl firmly blocked her way, putting on that pitiful mask. Did I do something wrong? Why does Mia seem to hate Nora so much? With such repeated provocations, Mia no longer endured, and sneered. Stop pretending, Nora. You might as well go and please Luke and Kyler more. Don't look for a sense of existence here. After being exposed, Nora didn't bother to pretend anymore. Her sharp nails dug deep into Mia's arm, and her tone was contemptuous. Loser. You believe it or not, no matter which time, they will choose me. Before Mia could understand the meaning of her words, the girl pulled Mia's hand and pushed her hard, screaming as she rolled down the stairs. From an outsider's perspective, it looked like Mia had pushed Nora down the stairs. When the two men arrived, they saw the white dress stained with blood. Nora lay on the ground and said with tears, Brother Luke Kyler, it's not Mia's fault. Nora is too clumsy and accidentally rolled down the stairs. Mia opened her mouth stiffly, her mind went blank, she could only helplessly repeat, No. It's not me. No one would believe that a normal person would roll down the stairs by herself and make herself so miserable just to frame another person. But Mia still had a glimmer of hope, because Luke and Kyler had always held her in the palm of their hands, and in all those years, they should also know that she was not such a vicious person. Mia looked at them with teary eyes, feeling very nervous. Would they believe her? 3. But the next moment, Mia only felt a burning sensation on her face and a buzzing in her ears. The slap shattered her expectations and fantasies, and a sharp pain shot through her heart. She looked at Luke almost incredulously. She never thought that the man who had always protected her and spoiled her would treat her like this for another woman. Luke looked at her coldly, with none of the former pampering. Mia, when did you become so vicious? Kyler also looked at Mia with the eyes of an enemy, and scolded. Mia, if anything happens to Nora, we won't let you go. But I really didn't push Nora. It was her. It hurts so much. Nora's crying voice interrupted Mia's explanation. Luke carefully held Nora in his arms and shouted at Mia. Enough! How long are you going to quibble? You are unwilling to admit your own mistakes, Mia. You disgust me. Disgusting, the word was sharp and piercing. Mia's hands trembled involuntarily, and her face turned pale. Kyler, who used to be lively and loved to act coquettishly towards her, no longer had any warmth in his eyes when he looked at Mia, leaving only a cold and disgusted sentence. Mia, stop it. The two nervously took Nora to the hospital, but they didn't notice Nora's triumphant look when she looked back at Mia. The woman showed a victorious smile, silently saying, "You lost, Mia." Mia stayed silent in place, quietly watching the three of them leave, and didn't try to chase after them to explain more. Anyway, they had already determined that she had committed such a crime, and all explanations were just stubborn excuses. Nora was right, she lost. She lost completely. Mia thought vaguely, when did the relationship between the three of them change? Clearly, Luke had always held her in the palm of his hand and cared for her, saying that she was his little princess and that he would protect her for the rest of his life. When Mia was young, her mother ran away. She was left with her alcoholic and gambling father, and every time her father encountered something unpleasant, he would pick up a belt and beat Mia, calling her a useless money loser. So Mia was always covered in bruises when she was young, with countless scars. Until Luke appeared. He would firmly protect Mia in his arms when Mia's drunken father beat her. The young man's shoulders were not wide, but they were full of security, and he still had scars on his body from protecting Mia. It was also he who used the power of the Luke family to send Mia's father to prison, ending her nightmare. When she was young, someone called Mia a wild child without parents, and he would fight desperately with those people. Even if he was outnumbered and beaten black and blue, he would be like a wolf cub, refusing to give up, and would fight and bite at the other party, shouting, "Don't let me hear you say that again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. As long as I'm alive, I can't bear to see others say that about Mia." The Barefoot was not afraid of the Shard, and later those people were also scared by Luke's desperate attitude, and dared not openly ridicule Mia. When Mia had her first period, it was Luke who bought sanitary napkins for her with a red face, made her red sugar water, and searched the internet for various precautions to take care of her. Whenever Mia had any emotions, whether it was encountering difficulties in her studies or getting along with her classmates, Luke could always notice and patiently help her find solutions. Mia once asked Luke why he was so good to her. The usually cold and arrogant young man softened his expression and rubbed her head affectionately. "Our little Mia is kind and beautiful, and deserves all the beauty and gentleness in the world." Everyone said that the cold and frosty Luke gave all his gentleness and patience to Mia. Mia also thought so the girl's affection gradually grew, and she began to feel sour about the girls who appeared around Luke, and she stubbornly refused to call Luke brother anymore. Finally, on her 18th birthday, Mia confessed her girlish feelings and blushed to confess to Luke. In the warm candlelight, she held her breath and waited nervously for Luke's answer. "Mia." As Luke opened his lips, Mia's heart beat fast, almost jumping out of her throat. Was it heaven or hell? Mia knew the answer the next moment. The girl's nervous and shy confession received no response. Luke, who had always been gentle to her, sank his face for the first time and said coldly, "Mia, don't you know shame? I'm your brother, 5 years older than you, don't you know that? Get rid of those thoughts of yours. Don't mistake dependence for love." Mia, who was coldly treated for the first time, was at a loss, but she still held back her tears and explained her feelings. "Luke, we're not related by blood, are we? And I'm grown up now, and I'm very clear about my feelings for you. I've confirmed it over and over again. My feelings for you are not the dependence of a sister on a brother, but the love of a woman for a man. If I just treated you as a brother, I wouldn't feel so sour and uncomfortable when other girls appeared around you. I would feel heartbroken just thinking that you would have a girlfriend." But Mia's confession was quickly interrupted by Luke's stern voice. "Enough! Mia, don't let me hear such words again. Are you just like your shameless mother, seeing a man and being indiscriminate?" Luke's harsh words made Mia heartbroken and confused. She never thought that the boy who had always cared for her would say such cruel words, trampling her feelings underfoot. Later, Mia learned that not long before she confessed, her mother, who had been missing for many years, had returned and was now with Luke's father. At that time, Luke's mother had only been dead for less than half a year. Mia guessed that Luke hated her mother for taking over her biological mother's position, and hated her by extension. Although Mia's mother had long abandoned Mia, she couldn't deny this blood relationship. Mia could only helplessly chase after him, and no matter how cold and sarcastic he was, she never gave up, because she would always remember the boy who had rescued her from the darkness. This chase lasted for 5 whole years. Until 3 months ago, Luke brought a girl in a white dress to her. Mia will never forget the scene that day. Luke set off fireworks all over City A for Nora, rented all the big screens in the mall, and confessed to Nora, his high-profile romance envied by countless people. Luke said to her lightly, "This is my girlfriend, Nora." The eyes he looked at Nora were full of tenderness, as if she were the most precious treasure in the world. Mia's head buzzed, and she clearly heard the sound of her heart breaking. The whole world fell apart at that moment. 5 years of pursuit was just a big dream. But on the surface, she could only force a smile and offer her blessings. And Nora looked at Mia's stiff face with an innocent and pitiful tone. "Mia, don't you like me? I feel like you're not very happy to see me. You're Luke's sister, and I really want to get your blessing as a sister-in-law. Please don't reject me, okay? If you do, I'll be really sad, and Luke will be very embarrassed too." Mia obviously didn't do anything, but after a few words from Nora, it seemed as if she had done something heinous and was deliberately embarrassing the woman. Luke's face darkened as soon as he heard it, and he warned, "Mia, stop your unpresentable tricks. If I find out that you make Nora unhappy again, don't blame me for being ruthless." Mia's love for him became a sin. From that day on, Luke was convinced that she was making things difficult for Nora out of jealousy. So as long as Nora acted innocent and pitiful, it was Mia's fault. Having lost Luke, Mia originally thought Kyla would be on her side. But Kyla was also taken away from her. Her certainty, her trust in Kyla, was like a loud slap across her face. The Kyla of the past had been like a clingy younger brother, always chasing after Mia. Every day he would try to make her happy, and his backpack would always be filled with chocolates and candies for her. When she was feeling lost and sad because of her family, young Kyla patted his chest and vowed, "Mia, you still have me. If they don't want you, I, Kyla, will always want you." Knowing that she had a stomach problem, Kyla would always pester Kyla's mother to make soup and porridge for Nora. He couldn't stand anyone making fun of her or saying bad things about her. If he heard it, he would give them a beating. He would always smile, revealing his little tiger teeth, and hold her hand, saying, "Mia, don't be afraid, I'll always be with you to protect you." But it was this same Kyla who, after Nora appeared, seemed to no longer keep his promises. Whenever it came to Nora and her, Kyla's choice was always Nora. The promise to protect her turned into, "Mia, don't bully Nora anymore." The two most important people in her life had left her after Nora appeared. Mia pulled herself out of her memories and realized that her forehead was already hot. She took a thermometer and measured it, and it was nearly 39 degrees Celsius. But she really didn't have the strength to go to the hospital, so she took a couple of fever-reducing pills and fell asleep. In her dream, there were strange and wonderful things. Her mother coaxing her to buy her a little dress for her birthday, but she never came back. There was her father smashing beer bottles on her, covered in blood, and still unsatisfied, he picked up a belt and whipped her, cursing her as a little bitch born of a bitch. There was Kyla's disappointed look, Luke's fierce slap, and his accusation that she was despicable. But there were also the times when they were young, when they smiled at her, held out their hands, and lovingly called her little princess, saying that they would protect her for the rest of their lives. Pain and beauty intertwined, and for a moment Mia's head ached. A piercing ringtone shattered Mia's dream. As soon as she answered the phone, Luke's cold voice came through, filled with anger. "Mia, how can you be so indifferent as the culprit, without even a trace of guilt? You've hurt Nora and you haven't even come to see her. You're so vicious." Mia pursed her dry lips and smiled bitterly. "How can you believe that I didn't push her? After knowing each other for so many years, do you think I'm so bad in your eyes?"
Luke became even angrier at her words. "Mia, stop using our past friendship to blackmail me. You did something wrong yourself and you still want to quibble, so unrepentant. I want you to come to the hospital and apologize to Nora now." Mia's refusal was cut short by Luke's threat. He said, "You haven't forgotten, have you? Your grandmother's relic is in my hands. If you continue to make mistakes like this, I'll have to find a way to make you turn back. After her grandmother passed away, she left a pair of jade pendants, one for Mia and the other for Mia's future husband. At that time, in order to make her grandmother rest in peace before she died, Luke cooperated with Mia to put on a show, promising to take good care of Mia after the old lady died and be her support. So the other jade pendant was naturally given to Luke by her grandmother. But she never expected that Luke would go so far for Nora, threatening her with her grandmother's relic. For the first time, a hint of hatred arose in Mia's heart. He clearly knew how important her grandmother was to her, but she could only force her feverish and weak body to go to the hospital. Nora was in the best private hospital. In the VIP ward, Nora was surrounded by two handsome and wealthy men like stars. One was domineering and evil, patiently asking Nora what she wanted to eat. With just a command from him, the chefs of a 5-star hotel would immediately come. The other was as cold as the moon, but he was gently comforting her, asking if she was uncomfortable. And now the best doctors in the entire private hospital were on standby at any time. Upon seeing Mia, Nora's eyes turned red instantly, like a frightened little rabbit, and she burrowed directly into Luke's arms. "Sister Mia, it's all my fault. I'm so annoying, that's why you would. Don't blame yourself, I understand. But I really didn't want to take Luke and Kyler away from you. Can you please forgive me?" It seemed like a show of weakness, but it directly confirmed Mia's guilt. This retreat immediately made Luke feel very sorry, and he held her tightly in his arms to comfort her. "Nora, what nonsense are you talking about? You're the victim. Why should you apologize to the perpetrator? I will protect you well in the future, and I will never let you get hurt again." Kyler also quickly took out a peeled apple shaped like a rabbit to tease Nora and make her laugh. "Nora, don't be sad, you're our little princess. We'll feel bad if you cry." Familiar words and scenes, just replaced by a different person. Nora seemed to be moved and finally stopped crying, slowly curving her doe-like eyes. "Luke, Kyler, you're so good to me." Mia stood stiffly in place, her heart feeling like a big hole had been torn in it, and a cold wind blew in, very cold. Her consciousness was called back by a cold rebuke. "Since you're here, why don't you apologize to Nora?" Luke's eyes were so cold they could freeze. "Do you know that because of you, her right-hand knuckles are seriously injured, and she will never be able to draw design drawings normally again? You ruined someone's dream." But it was clearly her who was directing and acting. Looking at the woman's smug face, Mia opened her lips, and the stubbornness in her bones prevented her from apologizing. Until Luke waved the old jade pendant with a double happiness character in front of Mia's eyes and held it high. "Are you going to apologize or not? If you don't, I'll let go." The only result of his letting go now was that the jade pendant would fall from a height and shatter into pieces. She heard Kyler's urging voice. "Mia, apologize quickly. It was clearly your fault. Is it so difficult to pay for your mistakes? Don't blame us. It's just that we can't let Nora suffer this injustice. She's already very kind, she's been hurt by you again and again but chooses to forgive you. You can't bully her just because she's soft-hearted." Listening to the harsh words in her ears, Mia's nose was sour. She stared at the jade pendant in front of her, and her eyes were red. Just as Luke was about to let go, she couldn't help but cry out, "No, I apologize." Looking at the woman's playful eyes, Mia didn't want to apologize, it wasn't her fault. But this jade pendant was the last thought her grandmother had left her, and thinking of the old woman's loving face, she could only bend her pride. "It's okay, Sister Mia, I forgive you," Nora cried as if she had suffered a great injustice. "It's just thinking about the design competition in a few weeks, I feel so sad. I haven't finished the draft yet, and my hand is injured. I can't draw design drawings normally anymore, and I will forever miss my dream. Why did this happen at this time?" Nora's cry was like a fire burning Luke, and he immediately took back the jade pendant he had given to Mia, holding it tightly in his hand, refusing to give it to Mia. With a cold expression, he said, "Can a simple apology atone for your sins? Mia, that's not how it works." "Then what do you want me to do?" Mia smiled bitterly. You give that design drawing to Nora, Luke said calmly. After all, you owe her. The calm words were like a bucket of ice water poured on Mia's heart, and she was enveloped in a cold and piercing chill, shivering uncontrollably. On the one hand was a dream she had worked hard for, and on the other hand was her grandmother's relic. How should she choose? This multiple-choice question seemed painful no matter how she chose. 7. Mia suddenly felt that their many years of friendship was a joke. She stared fixedly at Luke, as if she had never known this person. Her sharp nails dug deep into her flesh, drawing blood, but she was so numb that she felt nothing. Luke knew very well how many nights she had stayed up and how much effort she had put into this competition and this design. And now he could lightly order her to hand over her achievements, and even threatened her with her grandmother's relic. Faced with Mia's clear and painful gaze, Luke dodged for a moment, but then he thought of something and his wavering gaze became firm again. Mia, you should know if it weren't for you, Nora wouldn't have had such an accident. You're a sinner, and isn't it right to atone? Luke frowned tightly. Nora will never be able to draw design drawings normally for the rest of her life, and it's all thanks to you. You just need to give this design drawing to her and let her fulfill this regret. That's not too much to ask, is it? Kyler also gently patted Nora's shoulder to comfort her, saying lightly, Yes, Luke is right. You're just giving this opportunity to Nora, and there will be big and small competitions in the future, and you can participate. You've only lost this one opportunity, but Nora has lost much more than that. The two faces in front of her were completely unfamiliar to Mia. The image of them giving her warmth with a smile and saying that they would always protect her was distorted and shattered. Mia had never been so clear that neither her nominal older brother nor her childhood sweetheart who had grown up with her had died in the river of time. Blinking her sore eyes, Mia tried to suppress her trembling voice. So, if I don't give the design drawing to Nora, you'll smash my grandmother's relic, right? Hearing this, Luke rubbed his temples, seeming a little annoyed. Mia, don't be silly, is it so hard to pay for your mistakes? Kyler also looked at Mia helplessly. Mia, don't make it difficult for us. There was nothing wrong with paying for one's own mistakes, but why should someone pay for something they didn't do? And besides, who was making things difficult for whom? Mia laughed with tears. You just need to answer yes or no. She gritted her teeth and repeated, Is it true that if I don't give you the design drawing, my grandmother's relic will be destroyed today? Yes. The decisive answer shattered the last bit of illusion in Mia's heart. Mia's eyes were red, and her voice seemed to be squeezed out of her throat. Okay. Agree. I'm sorry, Mia. She apologized to her past self who had been fighting for nearly half a year. I'm sorry your hard work and sweat are about to be wasted, but compared to that, my grandmother's relic is more important. I know Sister Mia is very sad, and I don't want this either, but it's just that. Seeing that Luke and Kyler's eyes were on Mia, revealing a bit of reluctance, Nora immediately stretched out her bandaged right hand and whimpered as if she was wronged. This time, the two men didn't care to think too much and quickly went to comfort Nora. Mia didn't want to watch her poor performance anymore, and after submitting her design drawing under Nora's name, she coldly reached out to Luke and asked for the jade pendant. Luke seemed to be stung by Mia's cold eyes, and his outstretched hand trembled slightly. He felt a sense of panic inexplicably and almost helplessly called out, Mia. Kyler was also babbling an explanation. Mia, we still care about you, and we know you must feel uncomfortable. But Nora is so pitiful, and you know. Mia didn't pay any attention, and she didn't have the patience to say another word to them. She just grabbed the jade pendant and turned to leave. As she turned to leave, Mia felt a sudden dizziness in her head and her body swayed uncontrollably. Her already feverish body could no longer hold on, and she slowly lost consciousness. When Mia woke up again, Luke and Kyler were both guarding her bedside. Seeing her open her eyes, the two were both nervous and surprised. Mia, are you okay? How do you feel now? Mia, I'll go call the doctor over. Is there anything else that's uncomfortable? You have a fever, why didn't you tell us? Looking at them caring for her and asking about her well-being, Mia felt a sense of déjà vu, as if she had gone back to the past. But deep down, she knew clearly that she couldn't go back. Mia stopped Kyler's action of calling the doctor. Her tone was indifferent. "No need to call the doctor, I'm fine." Luke tried to reach out and measure Mia's forehead temperature to see if she still had a fever. But Mia subconsciously avoided it, a physiological rejection. The usually cold man looked at his avoided palm blankly. His heart ached. He stammered, I just want to see if your fever has gone down." Kyler also looked at Mia cautiously, with a helpless probe. "Mia, are you mad at us?" Unfortunately, Mia didn't show any emotion on her face. The woman's face was calm, like a dry well, without a ripple. She lifted her lips and stated the fact. "It's okay, I know you're standing up for Nora." But this answer didn't make the two men happy at all. Instead, they felt a sense of panic, as if they had lost something important. They would rather have a fierce quarrel and blame than such a light understatement. "Mia, no matter what, Luke and I care about you very much. It was like that in the past, and it is still the same now. Even if Nora appears, nothing will change." Before Kyler could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the ringing of Luke's phone. He answered the call, and Nora's helpless cry came through. "Luke, my hand hurts so much, where are you?" Nora's voice was not small, and all three of them undoubtedly heard it. Luke hesitated for a moment, his eyes flashing with struggle. After nearly a minute of struggle, he lowered his eyes and said, "Mia, you should rest well first. Something happened to Nora, I'll go." Before he could finish speaking, Mia pointed to the door. "Yeah, I understand, go ahead." Luke looked directly at Mia. His mood was very complicated. He didn't know when the girl who used to cling to him and had her eyes full of him had started to avoid him. This was what he wanted. He was the one who pushed Mia away, but he couldn't help but feel a bitter taste in his heart. "Brother Luke, let's go check on Nora quickly. She's been gone for a long time, and I'm really afraid something might happen to her. She's injured now, and she's very sensitive and needs care, and you're her boyfriend." Kyler's words gave him no reason to stay. Luke opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end he only left a sentence. "Mia, I'll come see you later." Then he left the ward with Kyler. Mia looked at the empty ward, but she didn't feel lost. She had long been accustomed to being abandoned, and her already scarred heart was numb. In 5 days she would be leaving. Thinking about studying design with the internationally renowned Master Nolan in the future, Mia felt a little more hopeful. However, she didn't expect that Nora wouldn't let her go before she left. 9. Mia's name was plastered all over the news with accusations of plagiarism. #Mia plagiarized, #genius designer or habitual plagiarist, #genius designer stole others' design results. Nora cried with red eyes in front of the camera, but pretended to be understanding. "I don't know why my sister Mia would do such a thing. Maybe she is still young and made a wrong decision for a moment. I understand her and I forgive her. I also hope everyone will stop attacking her." When uploading the signature, in order to prevent Mia from going back on her word, Luke had already taken away all the original drafts that Mia had kept. In other words, she had no way to prove that she hadn't plagiarized. The only people who could prove that Mia hadn't plagiarized were Luke and Kyler. They had her original design process and drafts. The design industry has zero tolerance for plagiarism. If she was found to be a plagiarist, her career would be ruined. Mia took a deep breath, tears streaming down her face, and tremblingly dialed Luke's number. "Brother Luke, you know best what happened, I beg you. Can you please return the original draft to me?" The woman choked. "I've never asked you for anything since I was young. Just for the sake of our past, don't be so cruel to me, okay?" The man on the other end of the phone was silent for a long time before he exhaled heavily. "I'm sorry." These 3 words felt like a heavy hammer smashing Mia's heart to pieces. She lost control as she had never before. What's the use of saying sorry? You clearly know what I will face if I am found to be plagiarizing. It's a stain on my career that can never be washed away, and everyone will question my previous works." Luke's voice was irritable and helpless. Now that two identical works have been submitted, one of us is destined to bear the crime of plagiarism. Nora's situation can't take such a blow. Mia almost screamed. She can't bear this accusation, but I can. She couldn't believe that such a smart Luke didn't know what was going on. It was clearly Nora who uploaded it, forcing them to choose between the two women. But he still chose Nora without hesitation. "Mia, calm down and listen to me. Your situation caused Nora's accident. This is compensation for her. I will give you more opportunities in the future. Even if you can't design, I can arrange other jobs for you so you can live a comfortable life." Mia didn't want to listen to the rest. It was meaningless. Luke and Kyler had sided with Nora and admitted her plagiarism. Mia was in pain and helpless. Her career seemed to be ruined, and she didn't know if her mentor would still be willing to give her a place to study abroad, because she had such a stain on her. When she received a call from her mentor, she didn't know how to explain it, so she could only sob and say over and over again, "Teacher, I didn't plagiarize." Professor Miles's voice was firm. "Mia, I believe in you. Although I don't know exactly what happened, you are my student for 3 years. I know your character and personality very well, and you would never do such a despicable thing. The study abroad quota is still reserved for you." "Thank you, teacher." Mia sobbed uncontrollably. The next day, after packing her luggage, Mia directly cut off her original SIM card and boarded the plane to Country Y without any hesitation. The moment the plane landed, Professor Miles called. "Mia, did you land safely?" Professor Miles's greeting warmed Mia's heart. "Yes, I've arrived, Professor." "That's good. I've given your number to Nolan, and he's coming to pick you up. He should be at the airport now." "Nolan?" Mia asked in confusion. Professor Miles slapped his forehead, only to remember to introduce Mia. "Right. I haven't had a chance to introduce you to him yet. Nolan is the teacher who will be in charge of teaching you from now on, and you can also take this opportunity to get to know each other." "Okay." Hanging up the phone, Mia pushed her luggage and walked out, starting to look for Nolan's figure. There was a lot of speculation about Nolan online, and it was hard to tell what was true and what was false. But what was certain was that Nolan came from a wealthy family in City J, with power and influence, and a deep and mysterious family background. He was incredibly talented in design and became an internationally renowned master at a young age, with a high status in the design world. However, he himself was very low-key and had almost never appeared in public events. There were no photos of him online, possibly because they had been processed, so Mia didn't know what he looked like. But thinking about it, she couldn't help but feel a little more cheat-eye expectation, knowing that someone with such deep expertise would be in charge of her design teaching. She was sure she would gain a lot from her studies in Country Y. There were many people waiting to pick up passengers at the airport exit, and one figure was particularly eye-catching, attracting almost everyone's attention. The man was wearing a limited edition Patek Philippe watch and a custom-made suit, exuding an aura of wealth and privilege, and at first glance, he was from a wealthy family. Not to mention, he had a face so handsome that it could attract any woman. His nose was high, his skin was fair, and his pair of amorous peach blossom eyes were particularly captivating. The owner's cold temperament weakened the amorous feeling brought by the peach blossom eyes. Undoubtedly a rare handsome man. No matter how Mia thought about it, she didn't think this could be Nolan. Nolan might have the ability, but he shouldn't be so young and have such a stunningly handsome face. So she quickly looked away. Just as she was searching everywhere, her phone rang. The moment she answered the phone, the handsome young man on the opposite side also put the phone to his ear and said hello. As their eyes met, Mia saw the handsome man walking towards her with long legs. His voice was magnetic and pleasant. "Hello, I'm Nolan. Professor Miles should have told you, I will be mainly responsible for your design teaching from now on. You can ask me any questions you have." Mia was dumbfounded, and it took her a few seconds to believe that the internationally renowned design master was not only young but also had such an outstanding appearance. She quickly forced a polite smile and shook Nolan's outstretched right hand. "Hello, I'm Mia. I'll need your guidance in the future." The young man was stunned for a moment, and a smile appeared on his icy face. It's true that people who don't smile often have a double attack when they do. Even though Nolan's smile was not big, it still amazed Mia. "But I just wanted to help you with your luggage." Making a big mistake, Mia's snow-white face immediately turned red, and she stammered, feeling very embarrassed. "I misunderstood, but you don't have to bother, I can carry my luggage." Although she said so, the man still grabbed Mia's suitcase and walked towards the exit with her. "It's okay, it's no trouble." Nolan seemed cold and hard to get along with, but he was actually very gentlemanly. He answered all of Mia's questions and didn't let her words fall on deaf ears. Seeing that Mia was embarrassed about interacting with strangers, he took the initiative to introduce her to the content and tasks she would be learning in the future. He also told her about the things she should pay attention to when she arrived in Country Y, and carefully recommended several good restaurants and supermarkets for shopping. "Thank you so much, Professor Nolan." Mia was very grateful for his care and felt from the bottom of her heart that Nolan was a really good person. She was very touched by the warmth she received in a foreign country. "You're welcome. If you need any help, you can contact me anytime." The two added each other on social media. Nolan sent Mia to her apartment and left after she went upstairs. Mia had been running around all day and fell asleep quickly as soon as she touched the soft bed. As for what kind of reaction Luke and Kyler would have after she left, she didn't care anymore. 11. At the same time, a strong sense of unease surged in Luke's heart. That unease reached its peak when they were celebrating Nora winning the design award. He thought Mia, who was so proud and valued design more than life itself, must hate him to death right now. Looking at the happy smile on Nora's face, Luke only found it cyan, dazzling or glaring. Because it should have belonged to Mia, this honor was something she had worked countless nights and countless efforts to earn. Even if Mia had done something wrong, he couldn't be happy for Nora. The thought of Mia hiding in a corner and crying secretly as she used to made his heart feel like it was being squeezed by a big hand, and he couldn't breathe in pain. The man really didn't have the mood to drink with them. The moment Nora Wansheng linked arms with his arm, he avoided her as if he had been electrocuted. There seemed to be two little people fighting in his head. One was saying, "Luke, you said you would make Mia give up on you, make her your sister, so you can't give her hope. Besides, her mother has taken over your mother's place. How can you have such feelings for her?" Another voice was saying, "Luke, you're just checking on Mia, it doesn't mean anything, you've cared about her for so many years, it's only natural. Besides, what does her mother's actions have to do with Mia? Are you really willing to let her stay in the apartment alone?" Just thinking about Mia crying and being in pain made Luke feel heartbroken. In the end, emotion overcame reason, and Luke got up and walked out. "I'm worried about Mia, I'll go find her first." Nora's smile froze, and she immediately grabbed Luke's arm. Under the man's cold gaze, she gave the reason she had used countless times and never failed. "Luke, you've taken so many steps, you can't give up now. Mia may have given up on you already, and if you care about her when you win the award, she may know that you care more about her. Then her feelings for you will rekindle." Seeing Luke hesitate, Nora increased her efforts. "If we have to start all over again, it will be very painful for both of you. Why don't you wait until she gives up, and then you can be like before? Besides, although Mia has been angry these past few times, nothing serious has happened, so you don't have to worry too much." Although his heart was still racing, Nora's words made sense. And Kyler also raised his glass and agreed. "Yeah, Brother Luke, we can go find Mia later. She's probably in a bad mood right now." Luke could only forcibly suppress his urge to go find Mia. Yes, he thought. He had almost exhausted Mia's feelings for him, and he couldn't give up halfway. He could just coax her well in a few days, treat her like a dear sister, just like he did when she was young. But Luke touched his aching heart helplessly. Why was he so sad? Clearly, he had brought Nora in as a contract girlfriend to make Mia give up on him. Yes, Nora was not his real girlfriend. His closeness and affection for Nora was just an act he put on for Mia, to make her give up. He had practically raised Mia from a child to a young girl, playing the role of both brother and father, and he couldn't cross that line. Moreover, Mia's mother had married his father and taken over his mother's place. If he were to be with Mia, what would others think of them, and how could he face his biological mother's spirit in heaven? He drained the red wine in his glass and tried to suppress all his emotions. But the thought of another man appearing beside Mia and taking her away made his heart ache so much that he could hardly breathe. 12. Kyler was also drinking glass after glass. His eyes obscured and unclear, as if he was thinking about something. Nora, seeing the two of them like this, immediately understood that they were drinking to drown their sorrows over Mia. She seemed to have won both men, but their hearts undoubtedly belonged to Mia. This made her very resentful, filled with jealousy and hatred for Mia. In fact, before Luke brought her to Mia to make a scene, she had already known Mia. Mia was very famous at school at the time. The girl was always wearing beautiful little dresses, and the material of the fabric looked very expensive. It was something she couldn't afford even if she saved for months. There was always a carefree smile on her beautiful face, as if nothing in the world could trouble her, which was really irritating. Not to mention, she was always surrounded by two boys with different styles, guarding her side like knights guarding a princess. One was cold and frosty, but he cared about her and gave her exclusive tenderness. The other was domineering and strong, but he was very careful with her, afraid that she would be unhappy. This made Nora jealous to the point of madness. Why did Mia, as a girl, have everything and live such a happy life? She was clearly no worse than Mia. Everything about Mia was disgusting to Nora. Even though Mia had donated money to her, a poor student, and helped her out, she only felt it was hypocritical. Why could Mia be so high and mighty, as if she were bestowing a favor on her? She cursed the word bitch countless times in her heart. After learning about Mia's background, her resentment reached its peak. It turned out that Mia was not a young lady from a wealthy family. She was just a wild child no one wanted, and she only had the luck to have two men who doted on her, and thus had everything. So why couldn't she, Nora, take her place? She had enough of her poor and impoverished life, and enough of her parents' preference for sons over daughters. So she was like a rat living in a sewer, secretly watching Mia's every move, waiting for the opportunity. Finally, she waited for her chance. It turned out that Mia was in love with her older brother Luke, who was 5 years older than her. But Luke's father had actually married Mia's mother, which undoubtedly created a deep rift in Luke's heart and made him resent Mia. This undoubtedly gave her an opportunity, and Nora took advantage of this to get close to Luke. Even though she knew clearly that Luke didn't love her, and even had feelings for Mia that he wasn't aware of. So what? She certainly liked Luke, but she liked his handsome appearance, his family background, and the wealth he represented even more. What Nora wanted was the resources that came with being Luke's girlfriend. The pain of Mia's unrequited love. The woman almost morbidly enjoyed watching Mia's sadness, and the sense of accomplishment she got from dragging a pampered princess into the mud excited her. Every look of hidden pain in Mia's eyes was the best nourishment for her twisted psychology. As for Kyler, she didn't expect Kyler to approach her at first. After all, even though he said those seemingly caring words and revolved around her, his eyes couldn't lie. Like Luke, he didn't love her either. She didn't really understand what Kyler's purpose was. But even if it was fake, she enjoyed the feeling of being surrounded by two men like stars. She wouldn't allow Mia to take all this back. Nora's eyes were cold, and she skillfully sent provocative messages and seemingly ambiguous photos to Mia. The thought of Mia's sad and restrained appearance made her feel exhilarated. But she didn't know that those messages were destined to sink into the sea. Even if Mia saw them, they wouldn't have any impact on her now. 15. Luke instructed the driver to send Nora away, and then tugged at his tie, still feeling a sense of unease. He sat in his car downstairs in Mia's building all night. But until noon the next day, Mia didn't show up at the door. This made him realize something was wrong, and he quickly dialed the number he had memorized. "Hello, the number you dialed is no longer in service." The cold mechanical voice was like a huge rock pressing on Luke's chest. His still somewhat drunk brain was completely sober. He didn't care about anything else and ran up the stairs. He was so fast that he even tripped and fell. It was a far cry from his usual elegant and calm appearance. Finally reaching Mia's apartment, he entered the password, but there was a sharp beep. The original password for Mia's apartment was his birthday. Luke felt inexplicably short of breath, heavy and stuffy. He tried other possible numbers, but it still showed an error. The continuous alarm stimulated his nerves that had not slept all night. Just then, a middle-aged man with a briefcase looked at him vigilantly and asked loudly, "Sir, what are you doing outside someone else's house?" Obviously, he suspected that Luke had bad intentions. Luke was stunned and said coldly, "This is my friend's house." The middle-aged man frowned, a little confused. "This house has been sold." Luke's eyes widened in disbelief. How is that possible? The guesses that flashed through his mind made Luke terrified and unwilling to believe it. He shouted hysterically, "This is clearly my friend's house. She's been living here. Don't talk nonsense." Having turned his back before and heard the constant sound of the password lock, he couldn't help but suspect that someone with bad intentions was trying to steal. But after taking a closer look at Luke, the middle-aged man realized that Luke was well-dressed and had a distinguished appearance. Not to mention his noble aura, which could not be faked. Only those who had been immersed in wealth for a long time could possess. Coupled with Luke's words, it didn't seem like he was making things up. His friend should really be living here. It was just that she hadn't told him she was moving, so the man was so agitated. Thinking of this, the middle-aged man softened his tone and said, "I'm a real estate agent, and this house has really been sold to us. Sir, your friend may not have had time to tell you." To prove that he was not a liar, the middle-aged man took out his work permit and the relevant house purchase contract. Luke could clearly see Mia's signature on the white paper. And the delivery date was the day Mia was falsely accused of plagiarism. Luke's heart ached. He had driven Mia away with his own hands. Taking a deep breath, Luke said to the real estate agent, "I bought this house at twice the selling price." This was Mia's house, and he couldn't let it fall into the hands of strangers. The middle-aged man was dumbfounded. This was simply a piece of pie falling from the sky. He immediately took out the house purchase contract, afraid that the cooked duck would fly away. After receiving Luke's transfer, the deal was closed, and he couldn't stop smiling. Luke entered the house with the password provided by the real estate agent and found that the originally warm and beautiful small apartment was now a bit empty. Almost all of Mia's belongings had been cleaned out, but the gifts he and Kyler had given her were still there, untouched. The little teddy bear he had given her, which Mia had cherished so much and often held in her arms, was now lying pitifully beside the trash can. Luke covered his wet eyes in embarrassment. Now, what was the difference between him and that abandoned toy? The man finally realized that Mia really didn't want him anymore. 14. Luke gave a self-deprecating laugh. He should have realized this earlier. Although Mia was soft and obedient, she also had her own pride and stubbornness. When she was a child, a girl had taken the initiative to approach Mia and become her friend. Mia was a quiet and introverted person who was not good at socializing, so she cherished this hard-won friendship. As their relationship grew closer, the girl began to take Mia for granted and revealed her true colors. She would always take various things from Mia in the name of friendship, such as luxury bracelets or limited edition hair clips. On her birthday, she would make exorbitant demands of Mia, but only gave Mia cheap things from the wholesale market. She also used Mia as an excuse to get close to Luke and Kyler. Mia knew it but didn't care. Luke and Kyler couldn't bear to see it and reminded Mia not to be friends with such a person with ulterior motives. But Mia still didn't break up with that girl and stay away from her. Just when Luke and Kyler were angry at Mia's soft-heartedness, Mia took the initiative to end this absurd friendship, simply because of a small incident. It was too long ago, and Luke had forgotten the specifics, but he vaguely remembered that in everyone's eyes, it was just a small matter, and according to Mia's personality, she would definitely forgive it. But Mia never interacted with that girl again after that, even though the girl kept begging. Luke and Kyler were also puzzled and asked Mia why she had suddenly fallen out with that girl. Before, she hadn't cared about even more serious matters. He still remembered Mia's expression at that time. The girl lowered her eyes, her expression still gentle but firm. "It's not because of this one thing that I'm angry. I cherished my friendship with her before, so I chose to back down time and time again. But feelings can be exhausted, and now choosing to end it is just because the remaining feelings can no longer support it." Mia thought for a moment and gave an example. "It's like I can play with someone and the score of being friends is 80 points. She hurts me and calculates me again and again, and I won't leave temporarily, but I will deduct points in my heart. Until the points are deducted, I will never want this friend again." Luke and Kyler were both stunned, and after a while, Kyler scratched his head and joked, "Brother Luke, we can't offend Mia in the future. You see, she looks soft-tempered, but she's actually very scary when she's ruthless." Mia curved her apricot eyes. "You guys know, so don't hurt me again or I'll definitely never turn back." Luke and Kyler nodded helplessly. "How could we hurt you? You know, you've been our little princess since we were young, and we're afraid you'll be unhappy." But they didn't expect the joke they made back then to come true. They had repeatedly hurt Mia by standing by Nora, and they had pushed her away little by little, until she reached her limit and Mia left on her own initiative, giving up on these feelings. If he hadn't been acting and had paid more attention to Mia, he probably could have found out earlier, and he wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Luke regretted it very much. He called Kyler and told him about Mia leaving, and Kyler was also stunned. After realizing it, he regretted it too. They immediately asked someone to find Mia's whereabouts. They only found out that Mia had already gone to Country Y. Mia had previously had an opportunity to study in Country Y, but she had refused for their sake. Now she left without any hesitation, obviously because she was deeply hurt by them. The more Luke and Kyler thought about it, the more uncomfortable they felt. 15. After landing in Country Y, Mia adapted quite well. Nolan was a very responsible mentor, and her busy study life also left her no time or energy to think about the unpleasant things that had happened before. However, the plagiarism scandal was quite big. There were malicious people who would jokingly say to Mia, "Mia, how familiar does that name sound? Isn't it the shameless plagiarist from a while ago? Ha ha ha, how dare someone like you come here for further studies?" Then they would hold up their phones in front of her and force her to look at the exploded comment section of the interview at that time. Mia didn't want to look, but those malicious words uncontrollably entered her eyes. "Oh my God, so the so-called genius designer is a thief who steals other people's work. It makes me want to vomit. Haha, can this kind of person just be hit by a car and die? What a social scum." These malicious comments made her body tremble uncontrollably, and sadly, she couldn't provide any evidence that she hadn't plagiarized. She could only pale and refute in vain, "I didn't plagiarize." In return, she was met with laughter. "The truth is already out, and you're still being stubborn. You clearly plagiarized but won't admit it, aren't you shameless?" Mia covered her ears and squatted down helplessly, her arms tightly wrapped around herself. The malicious voices around her were like knives stabbing into her heart. "Enough. Are you here to study or to spread rumors?" With a cold rebuke from Nolan, the crowd dispersed like a flock of birds. The man's eyebrows were sharp. You should have all seen the works that Mia submitted during this period. Her style and tone are very obvious. Outsiders may not understand, but as professional designers, don't you think that a person's style can change at will? If you compare her work with Nora's previous works, it's also very obvious who is more likely to have plagiarized. Mia's design skills are obvious to all. Instead of spending your time spreading rumors and being jealous of others, you might as well spend more time studying hard. As soon as Nolan finished speaking, the whole place became quiet. These words were like a slap in the face of those malicious people. Those who could come to this academy for further studies were not fools. They actually knew that Mia had probably been framed in that plagiarism scandal, but they were just jealous of her and hurt her like that. Nolan tore off this fig leaf, and everyone's faces were a little embarrassed and ashamed. Coupled with Nolan's obvious protection of Mia, no one dared to continue this farce. Looking at Mia curled up in the corner with tears on her face, Nolan's heart felt like it was scratched by a kitten, bringing a sharp pain. He took off his coat and wrapped it around Mia, taking her away. Nolan's coat had his unique scent, a cold and warm woody fragrance. It gave Mia a sense of indescribable security. The two walked for a few minutes and sat down on a bench in the park. The usually indifferent man softened his tone. "It's okay now, Mia, it's okay now." Nolan had never spoken in such a gentle and soothing tone, as if the girl beside him was some precious and fragile treasure that he didn't want to disturb. If his friends and family knew, they would be shocked. But the girl's thin body was still trembling uncontrollably, and she obviously hadn't recovered from her previous emotions. Nolan sighed and gently hugged the girl. This hug was not filled with any desire, only infinite pity and heartache, like comforting a frightened child. After a long time, Mia raised her slightly swollen eyes and asked, "Professor Nolan, why do you believe me so much?" Nolan smiled. "Just call me Nolan. Professor Nolan sounds too old." "Mia, actually, I know you earlier than you think. I've seen your works in the past few competitions, and I've been paying attention to you for years. Your works are very quiet and full of spirituality. I believe that someone who can create such works would not be a plagiarist. Don't be afraid, Mia. You haven't done anything, and the truth will come out eventually. Just believe me." Nolan's peach blossom eyes looked at Mia reassuringly. "It's just a matter of time." Although Mia had experienced so much hurt, she was still very wary of trusting people. But at this moment, Nolan's eyes seemed to contain infinite power, and inexplicably made Mia believe him. "Thank you, Nolan." The two looked at each other, and an ambiguous atmosphere filled the air. Mia realized the ambiguous atmosphere and blushed. When Luke and Kyler arrived at Country Y, they saw a man and a woman hugging each other, showing affection. "What are you doing?" Action preceded reason, and Luke couldn't help but growl before he could react. 16. Mia hadn't expected Luke and Kyler to chase her to Country Y. After all, they cared most about Nora. Why would they come to see her instead of staying with Nora? Mia said what she thought. "What are you doing in Country Y? Aren't you supposed to be with Nora?" Her words caused a stir, and Luke and Kyler's faces froze. Considering that Nolan was an outsider, they could only squeeze out a sentence. "It's not what you think. Can you let the outsider leave first? We'll explain to you later." Luke and Kyler looked at Nolan with hostility. The man was exceptionally handsome, tall and straight, and exuded an aura of authority. He was clearly not someone who could be easily dismissed. Moreover, when they arrived, the man was actually hugging Mia. They knew that Mia, despite her gentle and easygoing nature, always kept a distance from the opposite sex. But she was so close to this man. This undoubtedly sounded an alarm in Luke and Kyler's minds. They had a hunch that this strange man would be a strong competitor. "Just say what you want to say now. There's no need to avoid Nolan. He's not an outsider." Mia thought that since Nolan was both her mentor and her friend in a foreign country, and had given her a lot of help and warmth, how could he be considered an outsider? But when Mia said this to Luke and Kyler, it didn't sound the same to them. In their ears, it sounded like Mia had already developed feelings for Nolan and was inseparable from him. It was like a bolt of lightning from the blue. Luke opened his lips with difficulty and asked, "Mia, what's your relationship with him?" His eyes fixed on Mia, afraid to miss even a slight change in her expression. He even held his breath slightly, as if this answer was crucial to him. "You came to find me just to ask this." Looking at Luke's current appearance, Mia only felt a sense of disgust. "What's my relationship with him? I don't think I owe you an explanation." Mia's words were devoid of emotion, which made Luke and Kyler feel heartbroken. But they also knew that they had forced her to become like this, and everything was their own fault. Mia, please, for the sake of our past friendship, can you give us half an hour alone? Just half an hour, we want to explain everything first. Kyler looked at Mia with wet, puppy-like eyes, no longer the arrogant and domineering person he used to be. Seeing that Mia didn't speak, he lowered his requirements again. 20 minutes.
Well,
just 15 minutes, okay? It won't take you long. Mia thought about it and agreed. It wasn't that she felt sorry for Luke and Kyler, but she knew their personalities. If she didn't resolve the matter today, they would come to her again. Mia didn't want to drag it out. So she said to Nolan, "Nolan, you go first, I may have something to deal with." 15 minutes, right? Nolan asked Mia. Although Mia was a little puzzled, she still nodded. "Then I'll wait for you in the car. I'll come back when you're done talking." Nolan pointed to the direction of the car. Mia knew that Nolan was worried about her, and a warm feeling rose in her heart. She didn't refuse. Nolan's car was not far away, and he could see what was happening here. If he found that Mia was in any trouble, he could come over immediately. This gave the three of them enough independent space to talk, and they couldn't hear each other at this distance. It was a perfect display of gentlemanly manners. He cared about Mia but also gave her enough respect. Mia watched the man walk towards the Rolls-Royce, and there was an unconscious warmth in her eyes. Luke and Kyler's hearts sank. It seemed that Mia had already developed feelings for Nolan. "What do you want to tell me?" After Nolan left, Mia withdrew her gaze and asked indifferently. Her attitude was like that of two strangers. 17. Luke gave a bitter smile. "Mia, I'm sorry, it was we who hurt you. It may be a little late to say this now, but I still want to tell you that I've always loved you, Mia. Nora was just someone I brought in to act. I don't have any feelings for her at all. When you confessed to me back then, I found it a bit hard to accept. On the one hand, I was 5 years older than you, and I watched you grow from a naive little girl into the beautiful young woman you are today. I always thought that my role in your life was as a brother, as a family member, and I didn't dare to have such an inappropriate thought." Luke took a deep breath. "I was also afraid that you were just used to having me around to take care of you, that you didn't love me, but just mistook family affection for love, and thought I was just good to you. You were a child, and you couldn't tell your own feelings. But I was so much older than you, and I couldn't take advantage of your young age and be so despicable. I was afraid you would regret it later. On the other hand, you also know, less than half a year after my mother passed away, my father married your mother, and it seemed like my mother's death was insignificant and trivial. The traces of her in the house were gradually erased, and I took my anger out on you. I told myself that I couldn't fall in love with you." Luke pulled at his lips painfully. "I was so paranoid at that time. I thought that if I fell in love with you, I would be sorry for my mother in heaven. Besides, they were together, and if I was with you, how would the world look at us? So, like a patient with a fatal illness, I desperately looked for a cure. In a moment of desperation, I found Nora, who volunteered to be my girlfriend, to make you give up on me, and to make myself give up to put things back on track. But I didn't expect to hurt you again and again. I thought it was good for both of us, but I messed everything up." For the first time, the proud man lowered his head. His eyes red as he tried to grab Mia's hand. "Mia, I love you no matter how much I struggle or hide it. I can't control myself from loving you. I was wrong, I was very wrong. Can you give me another chance? I promise you from now on I will be good to you. I will make up for all the mistakes I've made with the rest of my life." Even a few months ago, facing Luke's tearful confession, Mia would have been moved and thrown herself into Luke's arms. It was such a lucky thing to like someone who liked you back. She would have willingly waited for years. But now, Mia reflexively avoided Luke's hand. There was no excitement in her heart, only full of disgust. "Luke, how dare you think that I'll come back to you just because you say sorry? I'm not a toy for you to play with, to be discarded whenever you want." The man's face turned pale instantly, That's not what I meant, I never thought of you that way. But that's what you've done. Mia sneered. The hurt you've caused me, can you make up for it with a simple apology? Because of Nora, you accused me again and again, without any evidence, calling me a vicious and jealous woman. My love for you became a sin, as if I was targeting and making things difficult for her just because she was your girlfriend. On my birthday, what did I get? You slapped me hard, and you ordered me to go to the hospital to apologize to Nora when I had a fever. I explained it to you many times, but you wouldn't believe me, and you even used my grandmother's relic to force me to apologize to her. With each sentence Mia said, Luke felt more guilty. He couldn't even believe that he could do such excessive things. He had always treated Mia like a precious pearl, holding her in the palm of his hand, afraid that she would be hurt. But he had hurt her so much. What had he been doing all this time? Luke almost begged. Don't say any more, Mia, please don't say any more. Why can't I say it? Mia sneered. You've already done it, so why are you afraid of me saying it? Looking at Luke's almost pale face, a surge of vengeful satisfaction rose in Mia's heart. You ruined nearly half a year of my hard work and gave it to Nora, letting her take my credit. And I was labeled a plagiarist and despised by everyone. I cried and begged you not to be so cruel. But what did you say? Mia said almost word for word. You said this was my punishment for my crime, saying that Nora couldn't handle the blow, so I should admit to this crime. Even though you clearly knew why there were 2 signatures on my work, and that it was all just Nora's show. Even though you knew that carrying this label would have a devastating impact on my career. But you still chose to stand by Nora, didn't you? Mia sneered sarcastically. We've been together for so many years, let's not talk about anything else, but would I really be the kind of person who would push someone down the stairs out of jealousy? People only want to believe what they want to believe. You just wanted to find a reasonable excuse to hurt me. Luke was a proud man, always holding his head high. But now that pride was cruelly crushed, and Luke bent over as if he were suffering from great pain. I'm sorry, Mia, I'm really sorry, I never meant to hurt you like this. I was too selfish and cowardly. I couldn't see my own heart clearly, and I kept avoiding it. Enough. Luke's apology only made Mia feel cheap. If you're really sorry, and if you really want to repent, then don't appear in front of me anymore. Seeing you makes me think of all those terrible pasts, and it makes me feel disgusted. I can't deny that you've been good to me, and I'm grateful for that. So let's just call it quits from now on, we owe each other nothing. Mia's decisiveness was like a knife stabbing into Luke's heart. He was red-eyed and begged, Mia, I know I've caused you too much pain and it's my fault. I will make it up to you with my actions. I will clear up the plagiarism incident, and I will never let Nora go. Please don't be so cruel to me, I really can't live without you. Cruel? You're the one who's been crueler to me. A broken mirror, no matter how you glue it back together, will still have cracks. It's like our relationship has come to an end. Luke, if you keep pestering me like this, it will only make me hate you more. Mia looked at Luke with almost disgust, and there was no longer any love in her eyes. This made Luke tremble all over. The big boss who had always been so successful in the business world was now as fragile as a child. Is there anything else you want to say? Mia looked at her watch and said calmly to Kyler, You have 5 minutes left, say whatever you want to say today, I don't want to see you anymore. 15 minutes, and she wasn't willing to stay with them for a second longer. When they were children, the 3 of them had such a good relationship. How could things have turned out like this? Kyler forced a smile, but it looked more like crying. Mia, I've always liked you, and you should be able to feel it. If you have something meaningless to say, then don't say it anymore. Before Kyler could finish, Mia interrupted him impatiently. You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. Mia's coldness pierced Kyler's heart deeply. The pain in his heart made him unable to speak for several seconds. 19. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, Kyler chuckled bitterly. I know it sounds absurd, but I never loved Nora. I only approached her at first because she was Luke's girlfriend. You liked Luke, and I liked you, so I wanted you to get what you wanted. Actually, Nora's methods were very low in my eyes. Every time she was surrounded by the two of us, her vanity would inflate, and she would flaunt her connections to us, bragging about being pursued by two young masters. It made me feel disgusted. I played along with her, watching her waver between the two of you, not wanting to let either of you go, and I found it quite amusing. But I also had my own selfish reasons. On the one hand, I wanted to help you, and on the other hand, I loved you and didn't want you to be with Luke. So even though I knew Luke loved you, I let him avoid his feelings and didn't expose him. When Nora deliberately made trouble to make Luke give up on you, I watched you suffer, and while I felt sorry for you, I was also secretly glad. I thought that maybe you would lose hope in Luke and see me, but because of my selfishness, I also hurt you. I'm sorry, Mia. Before Mia could react, Luke punched Kyler in the face. You insidious bastard. You're worse than a dog or a pig. Kyler didn't back down and retorted, What are you so much better? You're a hypocrite. The two seemingly respectable men fought like beasts, ignoring their dignity. They punched each other, as if the other were their sworn enemy. Mia watched the farce without stopping, and calmly walked towards Nolan's car. In Mia's heart, it no longer mattered what happened to them. After getting into the Rolls-Royce, Mia was lost in thought for a long time. Nolan had soothing and peaceful music playing in his car, which calmed her down. Nolan didn't ask any questions. He just quietly drove. His slender white fingers rested on the steering wheel of the luxurious car, bringing a sense of luxury. Don't you want to ask me what happened? Looking at Nolan's quiet and deep profile, Mia suddenly felt like confiding in him. If you want to say it, you will. If you don't want to say it, I'll ask you, and it might make you uncomfortable. Nolan turned his head, and his peach blossom eyes twinkled with a strange gentleness, making Mia's heart skip a beat. She quickly looked away and took a deep breath, slowly narrating the past. Those two men, one was my nominal brother, and the other was my childhood sweetheart. Although they were pampered and from wealthy families, they never treated me like a young master, and they took great care of me. When I grew up slowly, I fell in love with my nominal brother, but he scolded me for being shameless. But I didn't want to give up on someone I had a crush on, and since he had been so good to me before, I chased after him for 5 whole years, confessing to him on my birthday every year. Until the 6th year, he publicly confessed to a girl in City A and brought her in front of me, asking me to call her sister-in-law. That's when everything started to change. As she spoke, Mia's eyes became a little sore. She thought that those past events were over, and she had let go of them. But as she talked about it, she couldn't help but feel wronged. Nolan didn't interrupt her. He just gently raised his broad, white hand and stroked Mia's head, with comfort and encouragement. Nolan's comfort warmed Mia's heart, and she continued, That girl always targeted me, using some green tea tactics to make them think I was bullying her. On my birthday, she stole my birthday present and then pretended to fall down the stairs. So, on my birthday, the only gift I received was a hard slap and some unbearable insults. I had a fever that day, but I was forced to go to the hospital to apologize to her and admit that I hadn't done anything. I didn't want to admit it, but my nominal brother threatened me with my grandmother's relic. By this point, Mia was already crying. 20. Nolan, always cold, felt his heart twist into a knot. It was both sour and painful. He finally understood what his friend in City J had said. He wasn't indifferent to women. He just hadn't met the right person. When he met someone he cared about, his emotions were truly affected. Nolan pulled over and gently pulled Mia into his arms, comforting her as if she were a precious treasure. Mia found warmth in Nolan's embrace and unconsciously hugged his strong waist. Her voice was muffled. My nominal brother even asked me to give my designed work to that girl because she fell down the stairs and hurt her right hand. They had my grandmother's relic, so I had to give in, and even my original draft was taken away. Even so, that girl wouldn't let me go. She deliberately submitted the same design under my name, and because I didn't have the original draft, they blamed the plagiarism on me to protect that girl. But later, they told me that all their protection of that girl was just an act. My nominal brother didn't accept my love because he didn't realize his own feelings, and he also felt that my mother was his stepmother, so he couldn't accept it. My first love, because he loved me, deliberately wanted to shatter my heart for my brother. How ridiculous! Mia cried with red eyes. Nolan's heart ached when he saw Mia crying. He comforted her with an unprecedented gentle tone. Mia, you are the victim from beginning to end. I understand your pain, but we can't punish ourselves for other people's mistakes. You liked that man, so you pursued him for 5 years. You are a very brave girl. He was too cowardly and trampled on your feelings. Now that he has realized his mistake and says he loves you, but he didn't consider your feelings when he did those things, and he doesn't deserve to be by your side. Your first love, for his own sake, allowed you to be hurt again and again. It's not so much that he loves you, but that he loves himself more. Nolan softened his cold face and said to her very seriously, Mia, you are very talented in design. You are also kind and gentle. You deserve all the good things, and you deserve sincere love without any harm. If you're still feeling sad, just cry. Don't hold it in. The pain will pass soon, and a new Mia will emerge. Hearing Nolan's words, Mia couldn't help but cry. The tears released her emotions, and Mia felt as if a stone had been lifted from her heart. After crying, Mia felt an unfamiliar shyness. She had cried so much that she looked terrible, especially in front of Nolan. For some reason, she subconsciously cared about her image in front of Nolan. Did I cry very ugly? Mia lowered her head, a little embarrassed. Nolan took out a few tissues and gently wiped the tears from her face, smiling lightly. No, you're cute. Looking up at Nolan's serious and affectionate gaze, Mia's face turned completely red. It was on that day that Mia clearly realized that something had changed between them. 21. Nolan had always been special to Mia, and it became even more obvious after that day. He would pick Mia up and drop her off at school no matter the weather, and take her to eat all kinds of delicious food. When Mia praised a dress that was no longer available in magazines, he didn't know how many resources he moved or how much money he spent, but the next day, it was in Mia's hands. He auctioned off a master-level jewelry for $200 million just to match Mia's dress. When Mia received it, she was very nervous, but Nolan smiled slightly. Only these things are worthy of you, princess. You just need to be happy. Mia, don't feel any burden. This money is nothing to me, and I'm happy to buy it for you. Besides that, Nolan was also her mentor in design, fully supporting her dreams. No matter what time Mia asked Nolan a question, he would always reply instantly, and his answers were detailed. Later, Mia found out that she was his special reminder, and he blocked everyone except her when he slept. Nolan also took Mia to meet famous designers in the industry, who were idols she had never been able to reach before. But because of Nolan, Mia was able to communicate with these masters and gain more inspiration and ideas. She also attended a jewelry exhibition that was not open to the public, allowing her to see the exquisite designs with her own eyes. Whatever Mia wanted or cared about, Nolan could always make it happen for her. Their relationship developed naturally. So when Nolan proposed to her in a Michelin restaurant, Mia was only surprised, not resistant at all. In a romantic setting and with soft music playing, Nolan, wearing a custom-made suit, knelt down on one knee with a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He said tenderly, Mia, will you be my girlfriend? With the intention of getting married. Actually, before I met you, I never thought I would fall in love with anyone. Until I met you, I realized that a person can truly be moved by another person's joys and sorrows, and all I can think about is that person's every smile. I don't want to miss this opportunity, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So, Mia, can you give me a chance? Tears welled up in Mia's eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but was interrupted by a cold voice. Luke arrived out of breath and looked at Mia incredulously. Mia, are you really going to agree to this? Luke was both confused and flustered. I know you hate us, but don't make a hasty decision and ruin your future happiness. How long have you known him? Do you know his background? Do you know what kind of person he is? Kyler also urged anxiously. Mia, don't be impulsive. If you do this because of anger, the price you pay will be too high. For the past few days, Luke and Kyler had been coming to Mia's study place to find her. Just like when they were young, they tried their best to be good to her. They sent her expensive jewelry, limited edition sports cars, and even cared about her food, having the chefs from a 5-star hotel cook for her and deliver it to her. But Mia ignored them all, returning the luxury goods and throwing the food and fruit into the trash can. Mia had told them coldly that there would be no relationship between the three of them anymore, but Luke and Kyler persisted. And now it made Mia very annoyed. Under their wide-eyed gaze, Mia took Nolan's flowers and kissed Nolan lightly on the lips. Mia and Nolan's intimacy was a torture to the two men. They almost went crazy and swung their fists at Nolan. In their minds, it was Nolan who had taken Mia away, and if it weren't for him, Mia wouldn't have left them. Nolan was very agile and hugged Mia, dodging their attacks. Nolan protected Mia behind him and looked at the two men coldly. Is it fun to keep pestering me? You've caused so much harm to Mia, and you're still entangled with another woman. How dare you come to her? Luke gritted his teeth. I wasn't entangled with Nora, I was just using her. And if it weren't for this bastard Kyler, I would have. Before he could finish, Nolan sneered. No matter what your purpose was, the harm you caused Mia is real, isn't it? You've been making excuses for your behavior. You're so unmanly, it's disgusting. Kyler, who had been furious, calmed down after hearing Nolan's words. Luke was even angrier. What right do you have to say that? Just because you're the young master of the Nolan family. Nolan grabbed Luke's fist without hesitation and looked at him coldly. Just as the two were in a stalemate, Mia shouted coldly, Enough! Mia frowned and looked at Luke. Luke, what have you become? You're so undignified, it just makes me dislike you more. How familiar these words were, but the positions were reversed. The bullet she had fired months ago hit the bullseye. Luke's face turned pale and his smile was shattered. Mia, are you taking revenge on me? As long as you can forgive me, I'll accept anything. 22. Luke, I don't have the energy to retaliate against you. In my heart, you're no different from a stranger. What I said that day wasn't out of spite, we're really quits. From now on you go your way, I go mine, and we don't bother each other. Mia looked at Luke calmly. You're not that important, and neither is Kyler. I won't let you two decide whether or not I should be with Nolan. Choosing him is what my heart desires. Mia's words filled Nolan with sweetness. His cold eyes looked at Mia with tenderness. His big hand couldn't help but intertwine with Mia's. But Luke and Kyler felt like they had fallen into an ice cave, and they could hardly stand. Mia, are you really going to leave us? Yes, don't bother me anymore. Looking at the two men's sorrowful expressions like trapped beasts, Mia felt no ripple in her heart. The past affection had long since disappeared in the face of the hurt. Do you know that Nolan is the only heir to the Nolan family, the crown prince of City J? Their family is complex and deeply rooted, more powerful than my family and Kyler's family, and they are the top-tier family in City J. Can they really accept you? Luke grabbed at the last straw, his voice trembling. Mia only knew before that Nolan came from a wealthy family and was very powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to bid for a jewelry worth hundreds of millions without blinking, and even the design master who hadn't come out of seclusion gave him face to meet Mia. But she didn't expect that Nolan came from the top-tier family in Beijing, and his strength, which even a proud man like Luke admired, must be unfathomable. Although Luke's words were harsh, they were indeed what Mia was worried about. She came from a fallen noble family, her biological father was still in prison, and she had been accused of plagiarism. Could such a Mia really be accepted by a top-tier family? Mia's heart felt empty, and her fingers slowly loosened from Nolan's. But Nolan grabbed Mia's hand forcefully. Nolan's peach blossom eyes looked at Mia firmly, without flinching. Mia, since I've confessed to you and want to have a relationship with you with marriage in mind, I've made all the preparations. I'll handle everything about the Nolan family. If I can't even protect the woman I love, then I don't deserve to confess to you. Mia, you don't have to worry, I'm here. All you have to do is stay by my side and be happy." The intertwined hands were warm, and Mia's heart suddenly felt at ease. She believed in Nolan. He was cold, but he never broke his promises. Seeing Mia nod, Nolan smiled slightly and then warned Luke, "I know what you mean by saying that, but if you really love Mia, don't hurt her or indirectly belittle her. The harm has already been done, and it's undeniable, but it doesn't mean there's no chance to make up for it." After saying that, Nolan had a group of bodyguards escort Luke and Kyler out, enjoying his time with Mia. He had made his point clear, and it was up to Luke and Kyler to decide whether they would clear Mia's name and teach that scheming girl a lesson. If they were unwilling, Nolan had his own way. It would just be a bit more troublesome, as he had already asked people to collect evidence and was prepared for a second option. No matter what, with him around, Mia would never be wronged again. 23. For the first time, Luke didn't immediately clash with Nolan. Nolan was right. He owed Mia a debt. If he did nothing and let Mia carry this unjust accusation, he wouldn't have the right to say he loved her. So Luke and Kyler returned to their home country together, planning to resolve the domestic issues and then continue pursuing Mia. Luke, Kyler, and Mia had known each other for so many years, and they knew Mia's character perfectly well. She wouldn't hurt someone without reason, nor would she likely push Nora down the stairs out of jealousy. It was just that Luke wanted Mia to give up on him in the past, so he deliberately turned a blind eye and indulged Nora. He also kept deceiving himself, finding reasonable excuses for hurting Mia. And Kyler wanted Mia to be disappointed in Luke so he could take advantage of the situation. So he didn't stand by Mia and became an accomplice to Nora. Now that they were no longer holding back, they worked together and quickly uncovered the truth. It turned out that Nora had staged the fall down the stairs and framed Mia. Not only that, Nora had repeatedly provoked and targeted Mia, and when they came, she started to play the weak victim again. She even sent Mia vicious and mean messages, as well as photos that made them look very close. "Mia, you're shameless. If I were you, knowing that both young masters liked me, I would have stayed far away from them long ago. Mia, you're worse than a stray dog now, so lowly and despicable. Mia, now that you don't have your overbearing CEO brother or your wealthy first love, you're just the lowest of the low. Anyone can kick you around, haha." Of course, Nora was also the culprit behind the plagiarism incident. Nora submitted the same draft with 2 names, revealing a smug and vicious smile. What a genius designer. "Mia, I want you to suffer in hell forever." Looking at Nora's vicious and arrogant smile in the video, and those vulgar words, Luke and Kyler were filled with rage, wanting to strangle Nora to death. They had used such a disgusting person to play a role and hurt their beloved princess for so many years. Luke suppressed his anger and called Nora over. Nora didn't know that her crime had been exposed, and she immediately rushed over when she received Luke's call. Seeing Luke and Kyler, a happy smile appeared on her lips. "Luke, Kyler, you're back." Seeing that Mia wasn't there, Nora's heart was filled with even more joy. It seemed that both the powerful business tycoon and the handsome and evil fashion darling would be hers in the future. But Nora's happiness didn't last long. Luke grabbed her neck tightly. "You bitch, do you think we're fools? What you've done to Mia, you deserve to die 100 times to atone for your sins." Nora's eyes darted around nervously, and she quickly started to cry and plead, "Luke, I really didn't." Because her neck was being choked, the woman's voice was intermittent. "Crocodile tears, you don't even repent when you're about to die." Luke sneered, increasing his grip, as if he wanted to strangle Nora to death. As the oxygen in her lungs decreased, Nora's face turned purple. Her hands struggled less and less, and her tongue lolled out. Seeing that a life was about to be lost, Kyler grabbed Luke's hand and persuaded him, "There's no need to take a life, it's too dirty. We have plenty of ways to deal with her." Luke finally regained his composure from his rage and retracted his hand, throwing her aside like a piece of trash. 24. Nora coughed violently, clutching her bruised neck. The near-death suffocation just now had scared her. She realized then that these two men were complete devils. She had lost her usefulness, and she had hurt the people they loved. She didn't know what terrible fate awaited her. Both Luke and Kyler were powerful figures in City A. If they wanted her dead, it would be as easy as squishing an ant. Thinking about this, Nora started to tremble uncontrollably. It was clear now that everything she had done had been exposed, and they had the evidence. Nora no longer dared to argue, and like a dog, she crawled over and hugged Luke's leg, crying her eyes out. "Luke, I'm sorry, I was just confused. I did it because I loved you so much. Please forgive me, okay? I'll never do it again. Love." Luke's eyebrows furrowed in disgust, and he kicked Nora away. "You dare to say you love me? What you've done, you don't deserve forgiveness. Even if you were torn into 1,000 pieces, it wouldn't make up for the wrong you've done." He kicked with all his might, and Nora spat out a mouthful of blood in pain. But her desire to survive overcame the pain, and seeing that Luke was not going to help her, she crawled over to Kyler. "Kyler, please save me, okay? Didn't you say you liked me? As long as you save me, I'll be good to you from now on. I know you care about Mia very much, and I'll never offend her again." Unexpectedly, Kyler stepped on Nora's finger with his foot, and with a sneer he said, "Like you, Nora? Do you have any self-awareness? I never had any feelings for you from the beginning. I only approached you because of Mia." At this point, Nora finally understood. She was just a tool for both Luke and Kyler. "But you still have some use. If you can cooperate to clarify the plagiarism incident and atone for your sins, Luke and I can punish you lightly," Kyler said with a fox-like smile, looking at Nora. In this situation, how could Nora dare to disagree? She was like a drowning person clutching at a straw, nodding vigorously. With Nora publicly admitting to plagiarizing and stealing other people's work, public opinion quickly changed. Netizens who had previously cursed Mia profusely now apologized profusely and felt sorry for the innocent Mia. And Nora, the former victim, was now being attacked. Nora had lost her last bit of use, and after clarifying the matter, Luke and Kyler, ignoring Nora's cries and pleas, sent her directly to prison. She had done so many evil things, and she deserved to spend the rest of her life in prison and receive the punishment she deserved. The prison had been notified by Luke, so Nora's life there would definitely not be easy. When Mia saw the news of the clarification, she couldn't help but cry. She had been waiting for this day for a long time, and she had been suffering from it all this time. Being cleared of the unjust accusation made Mia feel relieved. It also gave Mia more confidence to meet Nolan's parents in the future. No parent would like it if their child was a fraud, and even if Nolan was willing to stand up for her, she didn't want that. Later that night, Mia accidentally saw the files and evidence about the plagiarism case in Nolan's study. She realized that even if Nora hadn't come forward to confess, Nolan would not have let her bear such a heavy burden. This moved Mia deeply, and she hugged Nolan tightly. Nolan let Mia hug him and gently touched the tip of Mia's nose. "I told you, all you need to do is be happy by my side, and I'll take care of everything else." 25. Mia and Nolan's relationship flourished as they spent more time together, and soon it was time to meet the parents. On that day, despite Nolan's reassurance, Mia was very nervous. She kept checking her outfit and makeup, afraid of making a mistake. Her hand, held by Nolan, was covered in cold sweat. She even imagined countless scenes of the wealthy and noble mother-in-law looking down on her and waving a check of several $100 million for her to leave. As for why it was hundreds of millions instead of the tens of millions in boring soap operas, it was because the Nolan family was so powerful that hundreds of millions seemed too meager. However, when she actually met them, she found that although they were top-notch aristocrats, they didn't have the arrogance and airs of the wealthy. Nolan's father was gentle and refined, with a scholarly air about him. He had a brief chat with Mia about her future career and even offered to introduce her to top designers, a resource that ordinary wealthy families could only dream of. Nolan's mother was a beautiful and elegant woman who looked no older than 30. She was very attentive, asking Mia about any food allergies or preferences, and told her to relax and feel at home. Seeming to notice Mia's doubts and nervousness, Nolan's mother took a sip of her wine and said gracefully, "Mia, my husband and I are not the kind of narrow-minded people who care about family background. Of course, we would be happy if our future daughter-in-law came from a good family. But even if not, it doesn't matter. People can't choose their birth, but they can decide their own height, so we care more about the girl herself. Before you, Nolan has been single for many years. Not to mention a girl as outstanding and likable as you. As long as he brought a girl home, your father and I would be overjoyed." Nolan's mother laughed. "And Nolan really likes you. His eyes are always on you. Every time he looks at you, the love in his eyes is about to overflow." Infected by Nolan's mother's relaxed and humorous attitude, Mia's tense shoulders gradually relaxed, and she was no longer so nervous. As she relaxed, Mia unconsciously released her charm, and Nolan's parents liked her even more. The dinner was a great success. The wedding date was quickly set, and Nolan had the best designer in Europe make a diamond-studded wedding dress, which was extremely luxurious. The other accessories were also very valuable, either limited editions or auctioned at high prices. Even the wedding invitations were gilded and designed by a master. Mia thought for a moment and sent invitations to Luke and Kyler. Luke looked at the red invitation. His heart ached, but he could only force a stiff smile and offer his blessings. "Congratulations, Mia, I hope you'll be very happy." "Yes, Mia, if he ever bullies you, be sure to tell us," Kyler said, his eyes also red. Mia knew they hadn't let go of her. They had been chasing after her in Country Y ever since they had dealt with Nora's matter, even though their businesses were in their home country. But things had changed, and she and them could never go back to the way they were. Mia looked at them for a long time and said softly, "You should be happy too. Let's forget about the past. Let's all look forward." After Mia left, the two pampered young masters who had lost their arrogance cried like children. But they didn't dare to beg Mia to give them another chance. They had done something wrong, and they didn't deserve to be forgiven, especially after what Mia had been through. Moreover, Nolan was so good to Mia that there was no room for them. Luke and Kyler witnessed the beauty of their love, and because of this, they knew they had no chance. On June 7th, a sunny day, Mia and Nolan held a grand wedding. On that day, Luke and Kyler attended as relatives of the bride, watching the girl they loved marry someone else. In the years that followed, Mia and Nolan had children, and Luke and Kyler remained single, because the girl they wanted to marry had become someone else's wife, and they couldn't give that position to anyone else. They doted on Mia's children, treating them as their own. Even the children would ask why their uncles were not married. The answer they got was, "Because our uncles did something wrong, and this is our punishment."